ETIM, the Eastern Turkestan Islamic Movement, is an organization which has used terrorism and violence to further its aim of setting up an independent so-called East Turkestan within China. Since its establishment, ETIM has maintained close ties with the Taliban, Al-Qaeda, ISIS, and the Islamic movement of Uzbekistan. Here is a press release from the US Treasury Department on ETIM in September 2002. The United Nations has added to its list of terrorists and terrorist supporters associated with Osama bin Laden and his Al-Qaeda network the Eastern Turkestan Islamic Movement, ETIM. We welcome this designation, which comes at the request of the governments of the United States, China, Afghanistan, and Kyrgyzstan. The ETIM's aim is the establishment of a fundamentalist Muslim state to be called East Turkestan. To that end, from 1990 to 2001, elements of the Eastern Turkestan Islamic movement have committed over 200 acts of terrorism, resulting in at least 162 deaths and over 440 injuries. ETIM has a close financial relationship with Al-Qaeda, and many of its members received terrorist training in Afghanistan financed by Al-Qaeda and the Taliban. A number of ETIM and ETIM-linked militants were captured in Afghanistan last fall, fighting alongside Al-Qaeda and the Taliban. A July 2002 report from the Hong Kong press quoted captured militants as saying ETIM leaders still worked with Osama bin Laden. Now I'm going to read from the report by the United Nations on ETIM in April 2011. The Eastern Turkestan Islamic Movement was listed on 11 September 2002 pursuant to paragraphs 1 and 2 of Resolution 1390 as being associated with Al-Qaeda, Osama bin Laden, for participating in the financing, planning, facilitating, preparing, or perpetrating of acts on behalf of Al-Qaeda. In recent years, ETIM has set up bases outside China to train terrorists and has dispatched its members to China to plot and execute terrorist acts, including bombing buses, cinemas, department stores, markets, and hotels. ETIM members took steps to plan attacks against the interests of the United States of America, including the United States Embassy in Bishkek, Kyrgyzstan. ETIM has a close financial relationship with Al-Qaeda. The major sources of funding for ETIM activities came from Osama bin Laden and Al-Qaeda and from organized crimes such as drug trafficking, arms smuggling, kidnapping, extortion, and looting. ETIM has received significant support from Al-Qaeda and the Taliban and previously from Osama bin Laden, and has sent its members to Al-Qaeda and Taliban training camps. Upon completion of training, ETIM members have traveled to Afghanistan, Kashmir, Chechnya of the Russian Federation, and China to conduct terrorist and other violent acts. ETIM is also considering using Kyrgyzstan and Kazakhstan as transit routes for the illegal transfer of fighters to China and elsewhere. Now, here's a press release by the Department of Defense in February 2018. That would be during the Trump presidency. US forces strike Taliban East Turkestan Islamic Movement training sites. During the past weekend, U.S. forces conducted air operations to strike Taliban and the East Turkestan Islamic Movement (ETIM) training facilities in Afghanistan's Badakhshan province, the commander of NATO air operations in Afghanistan said today. Speaking with Pentagon reporters via satellite, Air Force Major General James B. Hecker, commander of NATO Air Command Afghanistan, updated Pentagon reporters via satellite from Afghanistan on the alliance's resolute support mission there. Here is what he said. The destruction of these training facilities prevents terrorists from planning any acts near the border with China and Tajikistan, the general said. ETIM is a terrorist organization that operates in China and the border regions of Afghanistan, Hecker noted. ETIM enjoys support from the Taliban and Al-Qaeda in the mountains of Badakhshan. Now, let's hear from him directly. Here is Trump's general in 2018.
Over the past weekend, United States forces conducted air operations to strike Taliban and East Turkestan Islamic Movement, or ETIM, training facilities in Badakhshan province. The destruction of these training facilities prevent terrorists from planning any acts near the border with China and Tajikistan. The strikes also destroyed stolen Afghan National Army vehicles and the process of being converted to vehicle-borne improvised explosive devices. One brief note on ETIM, which I just mentioned. They are a terrorist organization that operates in China and the border regions of Afghanistan. ETIM enjoys support from the Taliban in the mountains of Badakhshan. So hitting these Taliban training facilities and squeezing the Taliban support networks degrades ETIM capabilities.
Okay, less than 2 years after this, in 2020, this is what Trump does. U.S. removes shadowy terrorist group ETIM from its terror list. Yes, in 2020, Trump's State Department, aka CIA, says no credible evidence that the East Turkestan Islamic Movement exists. I kid you not, people. Why? Right? Why? Let me give you an example of why CIA recruits, trains, arms, and directs terror organizations like ETIM. 2024, Islamic State terrorists kill at least 137, wound hundreds in Moscow concert hall shooting. 4 suspected attackers, all from Tajikistan, and another 15 people accused of being accomplices have gone on trial over an attack on a city concert hall in 2024, one of the deadliest strikes in Russia. The attackers are members of Islamic Jihadi terror groups in Central Asia, Afghanistan regions. That is ETIM. And let's not forget how the CIA trained and transported ETIM jihadis to Syria to topple Assad, aka invasion in the name of regime change and US humanitarian wars. Well, now Trump is back. He and his neocons are already busy reviving and bolstering Operation Gladio B, targeting Russia and China via their terrorist cells such as ETIM and ISIS-K. Target? Well, target energy pipelines to Russia and China in the Central Asia region. Target? Iran. Target terrorist bombings and violence in Xinjiang, China. Target Russia. Target several stand nations such as Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan. A few days ago, I broke the story on Trump pressuring Turkey's Erdogan. What does Trump want from Erdogan? Reviving and bolstering the CIA's Operation Gladio B headquarters in Turkey for planned terror operations against China and Russia. Pressure, bribe, threats, whatever it takes to make our global dominance goal via terrorism possible. All this censored real information and more is covered on my Patreon site. Join and support my Patreon community to see what they don't want you to look at and to know what they don't want you to know. This is Sibel Edmonds at patreon.com/SibelEdmonds.